So I've been very interested in artificial intelligence, large language models. I've been sort of studying this on the side on nights and weekends and reading. It's sort of been my hobby. And I've quite a while ago created this Creoverse, which I could share with anybody that has a Chat GPT account, plus account. And it's basically a place to go talk and ask questions about Creo. Now, I have lots of many documents from PTC um, uh, that are published on the web that I have fed into and thus for trained the system on. So it knows pretty much everything about Creo 11, 10, and 9. I think even going back to 7. It knows config options. It knows how to use Pro Toolkit. It has the help center built in as a training model. And so I can come in here and I can ask questions. And so I thought maybe being interactive here, how do I use intent edges in Creo? I could just ask a question like that, and it's going to search through that knowledge base. And I hope I haven't asked this question before, but this system is quite interesting. It's going through the knowledge base and it's coming up with a way to answer this question. So it's pretty good here. It's saying in Creo, intent edges are powerful selection tools to enhance feature robustness, especially if you're in rounds and chamfers, which is one of the reasons I like to do them. Rather than selecting individual edges, which can cause them to fail, you can set more logical sets of edges. So I'll just scroll out a little bit here. This is a little bit dense here, but and then it gives me, when you should use it, and then how to use it, and then why they exist, and even a little example. And I thought I would ask the group, what kind of things would you be interested in asking a system like this? I use this sometimes because I get asked lots of questions throughout the day, and I happen to know the information somewhere on my hard drive. It's somewhere buried in a document. I used to know the information. I just need a quick reminder. I would usually come in here, use this tool, get a quick refresher. I would never share exactly what comes out of here. I use this to sort of use this as research to try to understand more about Creo, how to use it properly, and also how try to help others. I've actually, in a few cases, taken some of the questions that have been asked in the public forum, and I was able to come in here and paste those questions in, and I would get quite a good answer. And I would usually wordsmith that a little bit, edit the answer, and post it on the community and say that it was generated by Creoverse. So I'm wondering what people think about this. This isn't something I've shown to anybody yet, so this is you guys are getting a first sort of preview. Um, and I wonder if anybody thinks this is a useful tool, if they'd like to use it, they'd like to try it. PTC is doing some interesting things in AI as well. I've been doing some interesting things in AI as well too. But is anybody in the group interested in AI or interested in a tool like this? Anybody in the group would like me to ask a question to this tool to see if we can stump it? Feel free to unmute.
And Michael Brian Cotney, KI. Yeah, I could definitely see use of this. We're trying to use AI in smart ways often. As a first, I guess my use case is a first line of defense when someone has a question before they have to kind of take it to the next, subject matter expert. So I could see this being very useful. Unfortunately, my organization blocks Chat GPT, so I can't access it.
Well, that's a very interesting question. That's happening a lot. Even at PTC, I know they block, they don't allow any employee, and it's for good reason, to paste, intellectual property code into ChatGPT.
Right.
So there's really good reasons. But lately, there's been a few interesting developments in AI, and the biggest thing is now you can run AI on your local computer. So if you've got a graphics card that you would use for Creo, like a CUDA certified NVIDIA graphics card, you can install a large language model, just even more powerful than ChatGPT, and keep that all locally. Never leaves your computer. You could disconnect from the internet, and it's extremely fast. And you can also download other models like DeepSeek,
Mm-hmm.
Gemini 2.5, which just hit, So the rage now is everyone's now learning to maybe not use ChatGPT for those reasons, for security reasons, IP reasons, and use it locally. So
Mhm.
that's something that I've been doing, and I'm actually considering moving this tool into a local language model on my own computer, and then maybe servicing it and allowing people to use it. But thanks for the comment. And yeah, I find it to be very interesting, very simple to use, and I thought others would find some use out of it. Unfortunately, you get blocked, um,
Yeah.
and I think there could be ways around that. Anybody would give me an idea of a question that might come through. I'll type it in here. Okay, no one's going to answer, so I'll say, what causes circular references? This is common. I get a lot of people ask me this. How do I, fundamentally understand why they happen and how to deal with them? So you can ask this thing just about anything. And you can also ask questions about other stuff. Let's say that you have an idea of a way to do something in SolidWorks, and you would like to know how to do it in Creo. So you could ask SolidWorks questions. I can make a loft in SolidWorks, but how to do in Creo? So it's been trained a little bit in SolidWorks. And it's going to understand that that's called a boundary blend feature. Or perhaps even, this surprised me, it even came back with the style feature, which is a very interesting idea because that's could achieve your workflow if that's what you're trying to do. But look at that. It just came back with these ideas of using those tools here. And of course, I hope you all understand in Creo, there's a built-in command finder to help you find SolidWorks commands. It's up here in the corner, but that's it's pretty interesting. So this is Creoverse, and again, if anybody wants to play around with this and try this out, um, or would like to enhance it and help me, make it better, I'm interested in that. There's got to be some questions. Come on, let's ask some good questions here. Is there a config option to control the showing of axes? Oops, I spelled that wrong. It doesn't even matter. Let's see if it comes back with this. And it got it right. Display axes. Gives me the possible values, how to set it, and so on. Any comments before I move to the next topic?
Can you animate an assembly like in SolidWorks?
Oh, is that a question I can ask? Can I animate an assembly like in SolidWorks? So this is referring you to mechanisms animation using servo motors. What do you think about its answer so far?
I think I was more referring to an animation from an assembled view to an exploded view.
Ah, an assembled view. I see. So you want to animate the explode. I happen to know that I think it's going to say there's a config option to control this timing. Yep, get have an explode state set up. You have to have that set up. I know that. You can create a new animation. You can set the duration, 5 seconds, and the keyframe. See if it comes up with the config option. And then you can save it as an AVI file. I've not done this personally, but this is how I would use it. If someone asked me on the street, hey, how do I do this? I'll go here, I'll read this, and I'll follow these steps, and I'll tell you sometimes it's right. Most times it's right. Sometimes it's not or not exact. but it gets me in an interesting direction. So even I'm learning some things here, and I'm happy to share this with anybody afterwards. And as far as explode states, yeah, there's a config option. I can ask a follow-up. Isn't there a config option that slows down explode timing? There we go. So just like any language model, it's interactive. It has a context. It knows what you've asked, and so on. So that's one trick right there. You can set this to a small number or a big number, and you will be able to take a screen recording of that animation. I've actually done that before using my space mouse, move it around during the explode, and sort of make an animation out of it. Thank you for that question. All right. The next thing I'd like to talk about.
Michael, this is Deb. I'm going to interrupt for 1 second. I'm seeing some new names on there, so maybe I went over my slides kind of fast. Just wanted everybody to know that we are recording this and it'll be on our website, a YouTube version. And also but give us a couple days, and then also the Facebook and LinkedIn groups. And yeah, we do have monthly Zooms. We won't have it in April or May because of the in-person meeting in May, but then we'll resume again in June, July. I think that's all I needed to add. Thanks.
I saw someone asked a question. Ask it for an example of conditions MCC for model check. This is quite interesting because I've read an entire book about model check and I've been getting pretty good at it. And I have taught this tool about model check. So it has the whole model check guide in it, and it understands this question quite good, actually. So here's an example conditions MCC file. And if you know anything about model check, you know the user interface is really hard. So you end up really configuring it through a sort of a text-based system, which is what I end up doing. So I typed that question in. I hope this makes a little sense to whoever asked this question. I saw there was some other questions, but I can't see I can't see them in the chat. Maybe let's make sure. Yes, I'm interested in Creoverse. Please confirm you said needed to paid account for chat. Yes, you need to access this, and unless they've changed it, you need the paid plan of ChatGPT. And all I need to do is give you a link to it, and you would be able to access it. People are saying they're using MS Copilot for IP protection, and that's good. I mean, even in my own company, we don't use those tools. We use our own Copilot, but we don't actually use AI a lot. But if we do, it would be with our own private system from Microsoft. All right.
Hey, Michael, I got a
Yes.
quick question. This is Alex.
Hi, Alex.
Maybe you answered this earlier. I came in just like a couple minutes late, but does this only answer or have a database connected to Creo inquiries? Does it also function with asking wind chill related questions?
It does not right now,
Okay.
but that's just because I haven't trained it on Windchill.
Okay.
I've focused on Creo, but that's an excellent question. I have ventured off into Model Check and some other Creo products, but that would just simply be, training it on Windchill documentation, and I think that's a great idea. I should go do that.
All right. Thank you.
And I've shown some of this to PTC, so they know that I'm out there doing this. But I've been, I've not trained it with any intellectual property. Anything that PTC puts out, I've trained it with. So all their documentation, which is available for public use, has been used, as well as their guides and so forth. Sorry if you hear my dog in the background. She's complaining. I'd like to talk next about something that I'm very passionate about. In my company, we've been doing these Creo health assessments. You might ask me, well, what is that? When I worked at PTC, I used to work at PTC. I used to work at PTC University. It was often very hard to sell training. Why do I need training? And so this tool you're about to see here is a way to assess a series of CAD models that have been created in Creo and find all the problems that are related to them bad habits. It's almost like a virus scanner for things that you don't want in models. I'm going to take you through a little bit of that. So this is some of the presentation. I'm just going to skip right ahead to some example findings of what the tool does. So what the tool does is I'm able to feed it thousands and thousands of CAD models, Creo assembly files, Creo drawings, and Creo part models. And it can take all these and run them through a Creo distributed batch system that I've written a wrapper around. And then it runs a series of over 200 model checks that I've custom configured around a range of areas. So this particular example is showing a report card on running all those models. This scan only ran 300 models, but overall 300 of those models had errors and warnings. So they got a D. But it breaks things down. It checks things according to consistency. Are you naming things properly? Are you being consistent how you use layers? It measures things around design intent straight. They got a C for this. Geometry quality, model complexity, model integrity. So this is just sort of a report card view, but what does this really mean? And it can mean a lot. You know, I'm working with a customer that was complaining and taking a long time to load models. It would take over 4 minutes to load a model. And when I looked through the model with the tool I'm talking about, it found that there were a lot of problems with threads. They were using threads everywhere, and it took just 1 minute to load one assembly. And just by getting rid of those threads, we were able to load it in 2 seconds. So it finds and identifies those kind of things. It can do this performance analysis. We're able to shave off a tremendous amount of time savings just by removing the thread. But what else can it do? Here's some other things it can do. It found 22 parts that were assembled as generic components. And you should know that you should never do that. It's a habit that everyone's fallen into. This tool is using Creo's model check to find 22 models that found this problem. And it tries to explain why you don't want those things in your model. So, you know, this is a helper document. Another favorite of mine is 23 parts out of the 300 that were measured had weak dimension sketching. And, you know, what a weak dimension sketch is, it's basically Creo assuming something really bad. And if I was the boss of an engineering team, I would never allow this. And so I would want to clean these up. And I know it's hard to find these things. That's what the tool's good at. It's finding sort of a needle in a haystack. So we can look at those parts, fix those problems. And I've sort of given a screenshot here. There's one little dimension that if you change, it will blow up this whole sketch. It won't work anymore. So, you know, we should avoid those types of things. Here's some other examples of some weak dimension sketching. Okay, so it's finding those issues and flagging them. Another thing it can do, it found 8 parts that should have had holes instead of cuts. We could probably have a debate over what the difference is between a hole and a cut. But if you're making a hole, I believe you should really make a hole, unless it's not a hole. So it found 8 parts that were identified of having features that were made as cuts, but they may as well be holes. Another favorite of mine, 47 parts, we're using edge references. Very dangerous. As we know, edge references don't make robust things for references. You could put a fillet on this at some point and lose that edge, or it could be an edge as a result of a fillet. It's a very dangerous situation. So I would tell people to clean up those things. And again, the tool helps you find these things like a needle in a haystack. And it can find regeneration errors. There were 5 parts that had regeneration problems, even things like anytime you might have commented out a relation. So, for example, it found 98 parts that have relation comments. This is sort of a pet peeve because I'm a programmer and developer. I think that if you're going to add relations, you should put comments in those relations. And if you're going to comment out a relation, you should put yourself a comment above it that says why you're doing it, so that you, a year later or 2 from now, could understand why you did this. And I still don't know why this is commented out, but if I uncomment it out, everything blows up. So, so the tool helps you find those kind of problems as well. The tool helps you find parts that have suppressed features. You know, again, looking for that needle in a haystack. I asked, this part is pretty important, but nobody could explain to us why all these parts were suppressed. They weren't using a family table. They were just sitting there doing nothing. finding things that are missing references or failed features. That's another thing that the tool can find. It can also find buried features. So in this case, there's a model check to find these buried features. If you don't know what a buried feature is, you can just take a look at this geometry here. Someone has drilled a hole in a pre-existing hole that's bigger. So this geometry is not contributing to the mass properties at all. It doesn't make any geometrical difference at all. Now, you might wonder, well, why should I fix that? I mean, well, if you change this original hole, suddenly this hole is going to come in, this drilled surface or hole rotated feature is going to suddenly come into effect. And I don't think that was someone's intention. So this one down here, the reason this has a buried feature is because this item over here was patterned 8 times. It should have only been patterned 6 times. So you got this one sitting out there in space. Not a big deal. You can clean these up and fix them. But these are the things I like to see cleaned up in model adequacy. Model. You want your models to look good, to be clean, and so forth. So I wondered if anybody was interested in any of this, interested in maybe having us help you run an evaluation on your CAD models. Our company actually offers this as a free service. And I really enjoy when a company is interested in model quality, model consistency, model complexity. You know, they could be doing a round of updates. They might be moving to a new version of Creo. They may be doing a mass change to move to a new version of Windchill, and they might like to clean up some of their data. This tool lets you find where those problems are, and you can sort of run it again and again, and we can look to see where those problems are resolved. But it also points to the wider issue, workflow issues, workflow and the way that we use the software. More often than not, it's just a different way to use the software. It could be someone using the software in an improper way, or they never took training, or they just didn't know about the feature the way it exists, or they're just confused by the interface. It could be a number of things. But I thought I would share this with the group and think that it's kind of interesting. And again, this uses PTC technology in the background. It's just using model check. It's using distributed batch, but it's using a recipe of over 200 special configured model checks in these range of areas, as well as the user interface on top of it. So maybe there's some questions people have on this before I move to the next topic. Am I still there?
Yep, we can hear you.
Nobody interested in that. Okay.
I guess, Michael, it's a comment. I mean, we'd be interested in something like that. Model check's been on our list for years. It's just kind of one of those things that it takes the right person to kind of geek out on it to, get it set up properly. And it never seems to get high enough on our list to, to get model check installed.
Well, model check is already installed. It's probably just not configured properly.
Configured.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
And we can help you with that. I think model check is a very underrated, undervalued tool. And you're right. It does take a month of Sundays and more of like you got to be a configurator whiz to figure it out.
Right.
Which is really my next topic. So this
Actually, I did have one question.
Okay, go on.
I'm assuming that these models are moreover created for items that will be milled on a CNC machine or a mill. Is it already set so that, say I want to create a part in a 3D printer, it's already set for that?
Yes, I have turned on every option, and you have to look at the options through a lens. If you are going to be machining these parts, if they're prismatic, then I care about holes versus cuts, because Creo knows how to drill a hole all day long. It treats cuts a little differently. But I could enhance the tool. It does work with sheet metal. It works with multi-body, works with drawings, but it's really trying to find and highlight the areas that should be looked at. It doesn't repair these problems. It just really points out where they are. So I hope that answers your question.
Sir,
Michael, I had a question regarding the overall score for import and cleanup into Windchill. What's a typical grade you need to do that successfully, to
That's a
import into
very interesting
Windchill?
question.
Is it
I might
all
ask you that
A's or
question.
B's?
Well, I've invented this scoring system on my own because I did feel it's interesting to get a score, right? The problem is I sort of have this rule that I've come down here, and why I come up with these scores. I feel like if you've got no errors, that's a good thing, right? So nobody flunked here until or got a D until there was an actual error. You should try to keep your warnings down. So what I've done is I've combed through the tool and I've combed through people's work and use cases and figured out what do most people care about in terms of warnings and errors. So an error in model check for me, I've set up the errors to be things like circular references, missing references, even weak sketching dimensions. I don't make that a warning. I've decided that's really serious, so I made that an error. The other things are warnings you could skip. But I'd like to see a B. I'd love
Okay.
to see a C, but I'm more interested in the team willing and wanting to do better, to actually clean up their models. I've been looking through models that customers give me through NDAs, right? And I see that people don't name features. I see that people don't even use simplified reps. There's so many cool things that you could do to clean up a model and make it really easy for you to understand when you open it years later, or even if your coworker is going to open it. We talk about design intent. That's something that I'm also measuring. But I think a B or a C would be great, and A's would be awesome. But I may tweak
Mhm.
this, and one of the reasons I'm showing this group, this is a user group after all. I am interested in maybe enhancing this a little bit better. Maybe the grade is a little bit too hard to achieve. Maybe we don't care enough about holes versus cuts. It really depends on what you care about. I was given a demonstration of this to someone the other day, and it happened to find a series of layers that weren't, sorry, features that weren't on a layer, datums that weren't on a layer. And I thought the person wouldn't care about that, but they were really upset that their users weren't putting those datums on layer. They had a rule about that. So the tool can find all those things, but it really depends on what you're after, what you're trying to do. And I hope to keep improving the tool as we go forward. It's really more of a service than a tool. I mean, the tool makes it really easy to find thousands and thousands of problems. Actually, I had one customer give me just one bolt, and I ran the test. It found all kinds of problems, but I only have one bolt, so that's not really a great analysis. So I hope to one day connect this to Windchill so that we could run a Windchill assessment as well.
Okay, thank you.
This is sort of a bonus topic. I really keep thinking about how to configure Creo. And on some nights and weekends, I've developed this tool, which I'm calling ConfigWiz. And what it helps you do, it helps you configure Creo. It helps you understand if your config option is going to work in this version or not. So I'm showing you the user interface. You can pick anywhere from Creo 2 to Creo 11. If I go in here and click configure, what it does, it gives me this nice interface which breaks down things into categories. So someone just mentioned 3D printing. Yeah, I can click 3D printing and I can see all the options that have to do with 3D printing all in one place. And I can change them. If I change this to no, it says that it's been added to the configuration, and it's going to keep track as I go here and shop around for different config options that I want. Now, you might be wondering, why is there a 3D printing category in the first place? That's because PTC has come up with their own categories. If you actually look through the documentation, they put things in additive manufacturing category, color categories, file retrieval categories. There's even a category without a category. So this is more of 3D printing includes not only additive manufacturing stuff, but includes a whole bunch of other options that you would care about if you were into 3D printing. Same thing with Sketcher. There's a whole bunch of sketching configs that are scattered all over these categories, but I put them in one nice place. And then there's things that I recommend that people do. I think that you should turn on these options, or you may want to look at these. I have some called essentials. I think people should be using Open Simplified Rep by default. That should be set to yes if you're working with large models. You may want to set your units to millimeters. You can do all this. You can set your absolute accuracy to 0.0001. But anyway, you do all this, and you can even search too. So if you're interested in finding search underscore path right? You can do a search, get right to that option, and you can type in a path to your file to somewhere. Now, after you're done, and by the way, there's over 2,000 configs, you can go to View Changes, and you can see a list of the changes that you made. You could see the option, which lets you click to go back to. You could see the new value that you've given it, and you can even delete it. You can also go into this view mode, and you could see just as plain text what it would look like, and I could even turn off the descriptions, and now I'm just getting these configs like this. And I can download this and install this into Creo. Now, another thing you could do here, if I just go back to the beginning, I'm going to throw away my configs. I'm going to go back here, and let's say I'm on Creo 6. What I can do is I can actually import a config file of my own as a pre-starting point, and it's going to tell me what's wrong with the config file. So I'm going to choose a config file somewhere on my computer here. Let me find it here. This happens to be a really big config file. It found 1,700 valid parameters. 14 of them were not necessary because they're already the default values, and there were 247 options that are not valid in this version of Creo. So these are all the options. So it's a way to sort of understand, is my config option going to work in this version? Okay, so in version 6 of Creo, these are not valid options. And so it's cleaned that up and removed all that. And again, put me in a mode that I can see here what those options are. And I can just see, where they are, and I can copy them and download them. I'm also very aware that Olaf Corden has a very great website called Creo Site, which has a capability similar to this, not exactly like this. I would say that I'm a big fan of his site. I've been learning from his site. I haven't used any of his stuff, but I just wanted to do some programming and sort of noticing that there's a lot of people who want to know how to configure Creo, and I thought this would be an interesting thing that the team might want to use. You could use it yourself. You could just go to ptcuserboston.org, and it's just called ConfigWiz. Anybody can get here. I've already made it public. It's even an open source project, so you can even get to the GitHub page and see how it was written. And you can also contribute to the code. It's made open source, so I'm hoping that I have ideas to make it better. I have an idea that I was showing someone the other day. So this would be really good for detail files. They're just as many DTL file configuration options as there are for config options. So I'm talking about, let me maybe get some reactions. Does this sound like something people are interested in? I mean, do you think what I've done here is useful? Would you want to use this? Any ideas? Tough crowd.
We certainly would. We just went from Creo 8 to Creo 11 and just ran through all of this that you're talking about. It would have been wonderful to have something like this.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. That's exactly why I wanted to do it, because doing it the old way through Creo, and I still think this is a very good way to do it, but it's just to go through options and find them that way is just really hard. So this you can basically type in anything, like any word. And I'm not only searching for the word, I'm also searching for the descriptions as well. So if I'm interested in things related to Sketcher, I just type in Sketcher, and all these things come up. And I can come in here and I can say, I want to, I don't want to animate that anymore. So I shut that off. And so you can go through here and use this. I have another version of this that I'm going to be launching next weekend because there are actually several special configs that allow you to have more than one option set. There's about 5 of them. So I need to make a bug fix to fix that. So that would be like search path. You can have multiple lines of search paths in a config.profile, and they'll all be used as a search path. That's kind of a unique situation. There's a few other ones. I think there's preserve save as file type that also allows multiple options as well. But I've got a sort of a unit test that I've run here to make sure that the information that's coming out is accurate, because I wouldn't want to basically create a config option that doesn't work. So I've been doing a little bit of testing on weekends to make sure that these configs are actually working. Just to sort of show off, I made a huge config option file that contains every config that Creo has. Let me just load that for a minute. I'm just going to upload them all. Okay, I lied. There's almost 2,000 parameters in Creo. This loaded them all, and this also changed every default value to some other value. But this gives me the ability to see a list of all the config options in order of them. And again, it will highlight any of them that aren't real, aren't allowed. And I'm also enhancing it to make sure that I validate that the values that you're giving are accurate too, because some values are very specific to what they're allowed. I've tried to offer, when it's a yes or no question, I give you a yes or no, so you can't make a mistake. But there's some other ones where I'd like to, like for this one, for example, file.txt. I might make a mistake and leave something at the end there. Maybe I put that in there. I'm going to make an enhancement. So if you try to do that, it'll validate that field and say that's not allowed. Those kind of things. But this is basically about a few weeks of programming on weekends and nights, having fun, playing with config options, and learning how to use to program again. I used to be a programmer a long time ago, so thought this would be useful to the team. So you can all use this and let me know what you think. If you've got ideas, if you think this is useful. Like I said, I'd like to add more features to it, make it easier to use. I'm even thinking of adding a wizard. It is called Config Wiz, but I'm thinking of adding like a 20-question wizard where it would ask you a series of questions and it would build you a config option based on the way you answer those questions. So for example, it may ask you, do you do any 3D printing? And if you answer no, it's going to skip about 150 options that you don't care about because you don't do any 3D printing. So it'll take you through a series of questions, ultimately give you a config file that's most likely what you want in the end, because these config files, they're getting big. I found so many interesting configs that do interesting things with Creo that I didn't even know about. And there's also hidden configs. This tool doesn't allow hidden configs. That's something that Olaf Korten's website allows. It's kind of interesting, these hidden configs. I don't allow them in this tool because they're kind of dangerous. They're not quote unquote sort of allowed by PTC because they are hidden. They are not published. I think he sort of parses the source code of the, not the source code, but the binary code to get them. But it doesn't offer it right now. So I will stop sharing and I'll take some questions. We can stop a little early if we want, but anybody have any thoughts? Hey, Brian, how you doing? I see Brian York there.
Doing well, thanks.
Start picking on people.
There is a file in the Creo install that does list the hidden ones as well. It's not even binary. It's a textual file that you can go find.
Could you send me that information?
Sure, I'll see if I can find it. It's been a long time since I looked at it, but
yeah, that's what I mean. We're all working together, right? So I built this tool as an open source project, and I'm sharing it with the community. Would like to make it better. I'm sure a long time ago, Olaf Korten created his first website, started making this tool available for people. I remember using it a long time ago, and I'm just trying to do some of the same things.
Michael, did you say that the Creoverse stuff is that's available for us to take a look at, or?
It is, yes. If you have I can send you the link. I believe it's going to require you to have a ChatGPT account.
Okay.
But you should be able to use it. Now, after if there's a way I can get a list of the emails after the call, I can share that with everybody. And so long as you have a ChatGPT Plus account, I think it will work. I even think now it might work without, because they sort of changed the restrictions. But yeah, I hope to send that to you so you can use it and try it out.
Great, thank you.
All right. Well, if there's no more questions, we can end early. I do appreciate being invited to talk again with you. I do wish it was a little more lively. I wish a little more people gave some questions and thoughts, but that's okay. These user groups are important. It's important we get together outside of PTC and talk about our projects, the things we're interested in. I consider Creo not only to be my job, but it's also my hobby. So, a lot of the stuff that I showed you today are sort of born from the hobbyist part of me. I'm always trying to find new ways to learn and innovate and apply the technology in different directions. And I hope to inspire you to give a talk, perhaps at a future event, maybe out at my Boston Regional User Group or at your own user group. I met a company the other day. I was talking to the guy after I was helping him install Creo, and he told me the most interesting fact, which I love. He told me that he started a user group inside of his own company, which I just think is a fabulous idea. Maybe some of you are doing it, but basically he gets them together every couple of months. He buys pizza, and his group gets together, and they do nothing but talk Creo all for a few hours. What are the tips? What are the techniques? What are you doing? Hey, I've just learned this thing. I have this problem, and he's found that there's been a much healthier, wider love and adoption for the tools. I think it's important that people meet not only just out of the user group, but why not out at your own company? So I thought that was pretty neat to share with you. So if you've got an idea like that, go for it.
Yeah, at my company that we have monthly CAD user groups, and it's, virtual, mainly virtual. But and it's usually the admins telling us, maybe new rules or new things that are problems that are happening, and there's like 50 plus of us, so it's good to get all that information out up to the group at one time.
I remember this one time I was doing a lunch and learn, and we do those in our company. Anytime you want us to come out and do a lunch and learn, we'll do that. But we got a bunch of people together, about 50 people in a room, and I asked them to introduce themselves. And I got the funny feeling that nobody ever met each other. And that was the first time they would all come together. And so I kind of made a joke. I said, you don't need to wait for me to come to get together. You're all in the same room. So now they're doing their own user groups, like you said, Deb. I think it's terrific.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention one more thing about model check. I had worked at a company, Harley, where model check's been used for years, but it has consequences. Like you must pass model check if you want that drawing to get promoted or that part to get promoted. So the company that I work at now has model check, but it runs all the time, but I don't really pay attention to it because there's no consequences. So I kind of just stopped looking at it. But now they're starting to get consequences, like you can't promote without and with these model check errors, fix these model check errors.
That
So
that is a slippery slope with model check. I tend to try to get people more interested in using it as a personal spell checker almost. Like what I love to do is first get it configured for everybody and then run interactive, right? Let someone do file prepare interactive mode and let them see the problems. Let them fix up the errors, the weak dimension sketching, the missing mistakes, layers, whatever it may be. I'm not a proponent of setting it up so much where you can't check it into Windchill or your PDM system. That to me could create a real crisis. Suddenly, I think companies can't check in their files. So you can bolt yourself in a mode where you can't work anymore. So I do love model check, and I am interested in more people using it. There are ways to run it, of course, with regenerate, with save, but I'm not the big proponent of doing what you just mentioned.
yeah, well, it's not that you can't check it in, you just can't promote, you can't release that drawing with, model
Yeah,
check errors.
whatever it is, sure, it's stopping you from
Yeah.
doing it. So
But then
that
you must fix.
and so if that's the rule, I mean that's the rules. So someone put it there, and you need to loosen up your rules, perhaps, or something like that. But yeah, but it doesn't stop anybody from using it. Again, I still try to promote it as a personal tool. Because I find most people say model check, what's that? And they said they heard of it. And when I show them where to go to use it, they're like, I didn't even know I could do this. And then I show them how you can click and introspect with the dialogue that pops up. I show them how to turn on the weak dimension sketching because it's not on by default. But once I get them going, they're kind of happy and they start modeling better. They start putting more effort into cleaning up models and stopping the propagation of habits.
Are there settings for ITAR and EAR compliance?
I'm gonna have to check on that. I'm not sure. I've not come across that one yet. The word ITAR. I'll do a search to see if I can find that word in the checks. You know, I really would love it if you all start putting pressure on PTC to add more checks, because it's still a product that's alive. They will add more checks. They have added more checks, but they sort of need to come on a demand basis. So I'd encourage you to request that through PTC if that's important to you. And then I think they are actually really important to have those either parameters or whatever it is. Like, what would you check in a model to look for ITAR? Would it be a parameter that you would have in there? Would it be the naming convention of the file, the protection of the file? Like, how could you imagine looking for that? Nick.
Yeah, I'm just thinking. Basically, with regards to certain threads, compliance, I know is a big thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I've taken a note down there. I'm going to investigate that a little bit.
I mean, ITAR stamps and what have you can also be on drawings. So I don't know if I can check for that too.
Okay. Yes, it does have a number of checks for drawings. I just needed to check if it does the ITAR related activities. And it's you can there's a great if you dig enough inside the PTC install point, load point, there's actually a PDF file on how to use model check. It's a great article, a great PDF that gives you all the settings and all the things it can do. So just get Creo installed, get the latest Creo installed, and look for that. And if I find it, I'll send that out to the groups as well if you want.
So I have a quick question for either Warren or Brian, somebody who goes to our admin roundtable. Some of the stuff that Michael was talking about, would that be good to have it one of these months in our admin roundtable? In terms of like DTL files and stuff like that?
Oh, you mean the configuration? Yeah, I would love to talk to that team.
Okay,
about
I'll send
that
you
because,
the
you know,
invitation.
I met someone who told me they waited 6 months to install Creo because they needed that much time to investigate if all their map keys and configs were going to work. They needed that much time to, like, comb through, compare, load, test. And I was like, wow, that could be automated. And so that was kind of the inspiration for some of this. There's a lot of configs that get removed from release to release. And this tool also tells you if a config default has changed. So there's a lot of config defaults that have changed from release to release. They change it from yes to no, or from no to yes, or offer different options. So I think it's really important if you move to a release that you investigate those config options, understand the ones that are not valid anymore, make sure that it's going to work. And also in Creo 11, and I recommend anybody do this anyway, get ready because they're moving map keys out of your config.pro. Starting in Creo 11, they did this. You're going to need to move it to a mapkey.pro file, which is the best way to do it because PTC has realized mixing map keys with config options is havoc. I've had companies call me with their broken Creo, and it literally was just a broken map key, but none of their config file would work because of this problem. So that's the thing to do, is to separate the config options from the map keys. That's why when you use the tool I showed a minute ago, I actually strip out the map keys. But I've got an idea to expand this to actually give you a map key output file.
Michael, this is Bill Harden from Generac. I've also been a PTC trainer, and I can tell you this is really neat to see this with model check behind the scenes. It would be nice to see if you could actually get the corrections, and getting the way that actually goes through to correct the models, because then it'd be like the days when we used to have model check and CAD train, so you can get an explanation of why that would actually happen. I've worked for various companies across the world in regards to model check, and set up right, it is a very nice tool, but set up incorrectly, it can be quite detrimental.
Absolutely, and the only reason I don't have that feature is I'm a little nervous about changing models on people. but you are right. You actually can repair a lot. You can move missing layers, move items to layers. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do to do with them. Not everything, but there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do, and I've often thought about adding that as a capability. But that's the next discussion after we do the free assessment. Is, hey, how can we utilize this so this doesn't happen again? How can we implore some of these checks so we catch the big ones? I really care about weak dimension sketching. I really care about
Right.
regen failures.
Right.
I don't care about spelling mistakes. That's
Yep.
actually a feature you can check spelling mistakes in drawings. I don't care about that one as much. So, but you're right. Maybe we can get together sometime and chat about this because I do love the concept and the talk about model check. It's for me, it's a tool that just never got completely finished.
Right. And I started with model check in the days when a gentleman by the name of Dante Delignes.
Oh yeah,
out
he's
of-
the creator or the guy who worked at PTC.
That's exactly right. I worked with him intensely. So, but I can tell you, I miss the days when, particularly for company standards, this works really well because then when a company has a standard, then you can change it based upon what they need to actually do to make that model correct.
So I'm trying to get people more interested in model quality. I've had some people tell me, I don't care.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care. I even had a company tell me, I don't mind circular references. So I don't want to live by that. I think, again, if we put the right things in place, if we bring back CAD admins and smart people, we can help these people create great models that stand the test of time because, it's all about making a product, but it's also about servicing a product. So I always ask people, are you going to be able to open up that file 5 years later to understand how you made it? Are you able to service that product?
Very true.
Are you even servicing that product? Do you have drawings? Where are those drawings? So much can go wrong if you cheat yourself in the beginning. So I've got a lot of clients moving from SolidWorks to Creo, which is great. And they've realized that they can't do what they can do in Creo. They just can't. They can't make big assemblies. They can't even make a cross section of a large assembly drawing without it crashing. The file sizes get huge. So Creo is really shines in that place, I think. But thank you for your comment, William. I hope to talk to you later.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. And then also just as one recommendation, so that accuracy that you change to 0.0001,
lower boundary.
that will actually increase the file size significantly. So I've always used 0.0004 as the absolute minimum, so you don't grow the file size.
Now, you see, that's quite interesting information. I've thought about enhancing. See, what I'm outputting in the tool is just what PTC gives you. But what you just gave is very useful information. I might like to enhance the documentation that PTC gives to give you that insight. Hey, this is probably a good number and there's a good reason for it. And you are right. If you increase those numbers you are going to get a bigger file size. But sometimes you need to do that for very small, intricate geometry that you can use with lattices. So I often use this lower boundary option to even get it even to a smaller number because the geometry is so small. But great point you make.
Right. And sometimes you have to do it because of, the settings from the imported data that you're coming in from might be set quite a bit lower. And so therefore you might have some issues and you have to lower it. But if you keep that in mind, you'll find that your size of your files will remain pretty much untouched. So from 0.0012 to 0.0004, there's not much difference in file size.
I met a company one time that had it's 0.1. And I freaked out, and it was set to inches. And I asked, and they don't have a problem with it. They don't make anything that's complicated. It's all prismatic, and there's no tiny edges. So it is quite interesting that.
Yeah, that is interesting.
And then I've had other cases where people say this software don't work, and I change their accuracy, and boom, it works. It regenerates. So accuracy is an interesting topic. And then, of course, when PTC switched from relative accuracy to absolute accuracy in Creo 7 with multi-body, that really caused a lot of issues for people to get used to absolute accuracy. But there could probably be a whole talk just on accuracy, William, you and I. We could probably do one.
Most definitely. I've seen quite a bit of it. So
are you in one of those are you in this group, this CAD admin group that she's been talking about?
I'm not right now. I'm new here at Generac. I've been here a year, and we've just pulled on to the user group sides. Another gentleman by the name of Carmine, he's on the call with us, but he's, I'm very familiar with the user. I was president of the user group for the Carolinas for
Oh,
many, many, many years, 10, 12 years.
that was
And
a, that
and
was
so,
very famous. It's famous. That one. I've heard
yeah,
great things about that one.
yeah, and I was an original Chicago user, founder of the Chicago user groups, which is pretty much, I don't think alive anymore. But anyways, when I moved down to North Carolina, I had actually formulated the user groups for both North and South Carolina, and then had them separate at one point and then combined them. And so now I think they're separate again, but I'm not sure. But I was president for almost 12, 13 years.
Well,
But
you
then,
are a passionate person. That's awesome to do your day job and put all that effort into as well.
yeah, it cost me my marriage, my first marriage. So I
Oops.
can tell, yeah, whoops is right.
Ah.
And so that's just part of it. So
I see.
anyways, yep.
A lot of good reasons to start user groups. So I think everyone should do it. It's good for your career, good for everything. My company loves it that I do this. So, and you can learn a lot. So, all
Yeah,
right.
when I agree with you, because when I was in Volvo, they encouraged it very heavily. And I was with Volvo for almost 15 years. So
Well, we need to get more younger people interested in this trade. And
Yep.
so, that's also been something I've been interested in is, trying to get more younger people to use Creo, get it taught in more colleges and universities. And more often than not, I'm hearing that people leaving college is just getting one little minor course on SolidWorks, and they don't really know much about other than just using the interface. But there are a couple of good universities out there that are teaching Creo. I think Purdue University does it as well.
yes, they do. Yes, they do. And a lot of times what will happen in the colleges and universities that I found, and that's what I did for NC State, is that they were paying for licenses, but in the education side, if you do it right, it's basically free
Free.
free for the university.
Free.
Yes,
You
it
just
is.
need to open that door for them, right?
That's
Show them
right.
the way.
That's right. That's right.
Wow.
That's what I did for the chancellor in engineering at NC State. So
Very
when I was
nice.
down in the Carolinas. So thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, nice to meet you.
here for Bachelor and Youth Group for at least 5 years, if not 7, we've supported one student per year. Doesn't cost that much, but a Creo scholarship at MATC, Milwaukee Area Technical College. So that's kind of our little way of reaching out to the younger people.
Wow, you should invite them back to do a talk. What have I learned since you gave
Well,
me this?
yeah, I know. I'd like that, but lots of times people just don't want to speak.
Really? Oh, I can
No.
get anybody to talk. You just have to hit the right buttons.
Yeah.
So
Okay, well, we've got like 1 minute, so we probably should wrap it up. I thank you so much for your time, and I'll invite you to that admin roundtable and
yeah, I'm interested in that.
April
And
11th.
anybody that's
Okay.
interested in any what I showed, please reach out to me. My email is michael.bourque@pdsvision.com or michael@ptcuserboston.org.